Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to season 2 of Conversations in Pop Culture. And before I bring on my guests and introduce them, I do want to remind everybody there are a bunch of links up above, including their Kickstarter that is currently going on. So please click those links. They'll also buy me a coffee. I live on coffee, and this is a fan-run show, so every little bit helps. So please click that link too. And so obviously, I got Michael Shoemaker and CB Zane from Outpost 426, and I think I got the numbers right this time. I think I got the numbers right.
You got it.
So welcome back, because I know CB, you've been on before, and obviously Michael, I'm meeting you for the first time. So welcome to the show, guys.
Oh, and by the way, Outpost 426, it has an origin. We actually have a reason a method to our madness there. We both love Aliens. That was on LV 426. And we both love The Thing, the 1982 version with John Carpenter. And it was set at Outpost 31. We just slammed them together and came up with, and that was actually CB's inspiration there. And it came up with a great name, great logo, combining both logos from the movies. So, I'm more than happy to roll with that.
Yep.
Outpost 426 for life. Well, I should do this, because
So obviously, you guys got a bunch of stuff going on, and one of the things that's going on that we're going to be talking about extensively here is Scorpiana 3. I think it has 19 days left, 19 days or so, and obviously there's a lot of stuff going on with this, and some people know about it, some people don't. So what is the basic premise of Scorpiana and the basic story of it for people who are hearing about it for the first time before we really dive into it?
Oh, man. I would say, and CB, jump in at any point. I'm just going to give the basic premise is that we wanted to do an anti-heroine kind of character. I mean, we love superheroines, but this particular character really jumped out to us. So we came up with this universe where there's this substance called quantium that if you're exposed to it, it's not quite like kryptonite. You know how there are the different kinds of kryptonite, and some will give you powers, and some will take powers away from Superman, some will kill him. In this case, it will most of the time be lethal, but sometimes it will give you powers. It's a roll of the dice, it really is. And the government, of course, seeing its potential, has been trying to weaponize it, trying to create super soldiers because other countries are. You know how this always triggers an arms race. And so basically what happened was the government ran this Black Ops program and said, let's scoop a whole bunch of people up that nobody will miss and expose them to this stuff and see what happens. And of course, there are now mass graves as a result of this. The government contracted with the cartels to do this because they do a lot of human trafficking and that kind of thing. Well, they scooped up the wrong two girls. They scooped up the Santos sisters, a couple of pro wrestlers who are down there in the Arizona area, near the border, so that they can, do their pro wrestling thing. And they grabbed them, drugged them, and they were subject to the experimentation. And they were actually the last two test subjects before they kind of had to shut things down because the heat was on. And they thought Elena almost made it but died, so she wound up in a mass grave. And her sister Maria, she survived, and so she wound up in a cryotube at the hands of the villainous Dr. Pluto Moore. And so right now, she's in the process, the final stages in issue 3 of no longer just being observed. He wants to actually, because he's a mad doctor, he wants to cut her open, see what actually makes a metahuman tick, as it were. And meanwhile, Elena has been on the warpath. She came out of that mass grave. She has lethal powers, and she has been finishing off cartel members trying to find the whereabouts of her sister. And finally, in this issue, she does learn the whereabouts through one of the Black Ops guys who's actually helping her out. And so she and a couple of other metahumans that he runs as a Black Ops guy are going to the facility where she's being held. And in the interim, however, she kind of has a scrape with one of the female metahumans that he runs. Hence that beautiful cat fight metal print that CB just showed off to us that I'm sure that we'll see again because the metal prints are just freaking awesome. But yeah, she basically is needless to say, she has a temper, and so she and the super assassin Shada there are going at it in the desert, as it were, pursuant to them finally getting to a point where they can actually talk about things. But first we got to have a fight. So there's a fight. And so right now, this issue is dealing with Scorpiana learning of the whereabouts of her sister. We have a side subplot that's been running through the different issues where the government, the arm of the government that's not aware of the Black Ops side of things, assembled a team called Quest, which is the Quantum Emergency Support Team. It's kind of like the nuclear emergency support team that we've got in this country, except for the one we got in this country doesn't actually carry weapons. They just monitor nuclear sensitive situation and send egghead scientists to deal with any radioactive material that may pop up or be found. Well, our team, they're packing, and they're dealing with not only recovering quantum, but trying to deal with quantum-oriented threats like meta. And so they're also kind of closing in on this whole Black Ops program side of things. And so we get their side in this as well. There's a cameo from a character that will probably be debuting early next year of mine, Scarlett Steele. She's kind of the Superman of this universe, except for, she's obviously a lady.
So and, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Well, we try to pack a lot of stuff in because we have these different characters and plots going, not just in this book. This is kind of the tentpole book that sets things up. And from this tentpole book, CD has spun off Mike, and she had a great first issue. So I mean, you want to look for that. And Scarlett is going to get spun off, and Quest will undoubtedly get spun off. And Scorpiana and Maria will have their own thing. But in continuing in this, we may actually focus on Maria, even if Scorpiana is in the book. We may focus on her for a future book in this continuity. But that's what's going on with Scorpiana 3, and basically to date. Scorpiana's had to fight and claw and deal with bad guys to this point. And so this is the sort of penultimate book in what I call the Pluto Moore arc, because Pluto's about to face a reckoning for all of his misdeeds as a mad scientist and grabbing people and doing horrible things to them. And but it won't completely wrap things up because there is a power broker even behind Pluto Moore, even behind the whole Black Ops thing. And so that's got to be resolved. So we won't be quite done just yet. But Pluto's gonna, get a face full of it, I guess you'd say. Yeah. And that's going to be coming down in issue 4. So this is the setup, and then the next issue is going to be Rocky 4 when he goes to Russia and he's done with his training and he gets in the ring with Ivan Drago. Okay, that's pretty much what 4 is going to be. And I know the CB's probably looking at his chops because he knows he's going to have to do a whole bunch of fight drawing, as it were. I mean,
yeah, I know it's coming down the tube, so I'm ready. I said I know it's coming down the tube, so I'm ready.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's going to be just a nice battle royale, as it were. It's going to be fun. So that's what's going on with Scorpiana 3, and we are so pleased that this. I mean, the first 2 campaigns did well, but this one has really, exceeded our expectations. And I'm surprised at the number of new backers, people who weren't even familiar with Scorpiana who are buying in, and that has been a kind of a revelation, if you will, because there are people like, hey, where can we get back issues for this thing? So, you like to see that. You like to see people who aren't familiar with it get into it, and that's really great.
So to even talk about some of this stuff, because there's a lot of stuff going on with this. Obviously, issue 1, issue 2, we sort of get the fighting and obviously dealing with them assassins. And, well, there's some fighting in the desert and possibly something going on in the bedroom. I'm just saying that could happen here.
There is always something going on in the bedroom. I mean, I don't know if I would know how to write a book and not put something in that respect going on. It's just
got to know where my mind is.
Yeah. I mean,
clearly.
Yes. I mean, I'm just saying, if this is not Superman. This is not a Marvel or DC Comics Code Authority book, right? You're missing a golden opportunity if you don't just exploit every angle of this. And by exploit, I mean exploit. So, it's one of those things where I've said it on a past show, I'll say it again. I'm a big, big fan of intelligent sleeps. I guess that's the best way to put it. And one of my favorite movies that I point to for an example of this is Wild Things. I don't know if you remember this from the late 90s, Denise Richards and Nev Campbell, Matt Dillon. I mean,
it's an underrated plot. That movie.
It is.
Kevin Bacon in that.
Yep.
You're right. It's so good. It's so good.
There is no reason why movies and stories cannot be both smart and kind of smutty at the same time. Just no reason, okay? Now, if we were looking to do something more, say, Neil Gaiman-ish or Alan Moore-ish, well, Alan does get the sex in there, I have to say, he's not shy about that at all. So he's a bad example. But, I mean, if we were looking for something more socially relevant or something that was deeper in meaning, context, we'd consider it before ruling it out for something sexier and fun. So I'm just saying that life is short and why take it too seriously? So we are just kicking ass and doing our own thing and having a good time at it. We're running it up the flagpole, and fortunately people are saluting it. So we're happy with that. Very.
And so to even talk and going off of that and where this is going, because obviously this is gritty. It definitely has, nudity in it to some degree, and we're going to be talking about a bunch of covers in a second here, and that should say something right there. I know, obviously, Stevie Zane, you and me have spoken about this with Into the Suck and a variety of other things.
Yep.
And this also is getting now into this idea where, obviously Scorpiana is trying to find her sister, and, well, her sister's now developing into this super-powered demon-type character as well. And she's not just going to sit and watch herself get dissected. Now she has her own plans going on as well, and it's kind of cool when you can't control a monster anymore.
Right.
And that's also being played out in issue 3 in a lot of ways. It's very cool when that's going on.
Right.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of. I've always gravitated to stories about that. Like let's use the obvious example of Frankenstein, where you have the monster and it takes on its own life. That, and I've always loved the Beauty and the Beast, So yeah, I'm getting a little feedback here. I think I'm going to throw on some headphones and see if that helps. So hold on.
And one thing, we have a Facebook user here, proud Scorpiana backer here. Need to get behind this book. Okay, I really appreciate the comment. I didn't see because I had the private chat on, but that is most appreciated. I am like I said, I'm just thrilled at the support we have gotten to this stage, and it seems to be a fairly enthusiastic support. And they really like what they see, and in keeping with previous remarks I made, and talking about Frankenstein. Well, if you remember in Bride of Frankenstein, right before he throws the switch that blows up the castle, he says, "We belong dead." Well, my attitude is we belong in bed. And so that's what is coming up, I am sure, at some point for Fair Maria. And just trying to segue from Frankenstein into our comic there. That just occurred to me. So, take it for what it's worth. But, the whole thing about the kind of like you create the monster, it's irony. In the case of Frankenstein, there's a metaphor going on there. The monster is the metaphor for, Dr. Frankenstein's hubris. And in this case, it's the same, except she's wearing basically a bikini and hooker boots. And so that's going to be, a departure from what people are used to from the literary classics, or, from Mary Shelley's original to our smutty version of it. But our smutty version has metal prints and a variety of covers, so Mary Shelley cannot say the same thing. So, I think we win. I really do. I think we win.
And then obviously even going into this, because we're getting into this idea where, as we were saying, and going down the path where Maria is basically becoming uncontrollable and might free herself, and then, well, she might have a whole different attitude to, you know, her sister and a variety of other people. Obviously, they're coming to save her to some degree, and now it's becoming a whole time thing where they're trying to track her down and get there first. But they might not even need to, where it's all going and where this is going for, you know, Dr. Pluto and what's about to happen to him and all that stuff. And then obviously a bunch of other stuff is about to come down the pike. And I don't want to ruin too much here because obviously issue 4 is coming. And this is very much a setup to that. Some things are about to get resolved. I think it's pretty obvious that a sense of justice is going to happen in this book, but there's a greater justice that probably still needs to be, you know, ran up and run down the line a little bit. But I don't want to ruin any of that because I actually want people to back this book.
No, exactly. But and there's different levels to, you know, the justice that will be, you know, delved out in this too. It's not just resigned to Pluto more. There's much more that's ultimately going to be handed out and dealt with. And you know, like Mike said, we want a book that's gonna, you know, just kind of rock and roll, and it's action, it's sexy, you know, that's what we want to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the whole thing is that you do have this puppet master element, this higher government element basically going on. Frequently, those kinds of people think they're doing it for the right reasons, but they wind up doing bad things for the right reasons and so forth. And so, you know, there's always there's that angle that will be explored. I mean, I can promise you that it's probably going to be beyond issue 4 even for that much. But yeah, it's going to be fun to work Maria into the mix because like I said, you know, if I didn't give too much away, you know, she and Scorpiona will be reunited, and there may be a little bit of a rocky element there. Is she operating under her own free will? Is there an element of maybe a little delusion going on when she first comes to her senses?
She pulled from the Hunger Games.
Exactly. I mean, she's been in the tube for a while. Who knows what little thoughts that the evil doctor has been trying to implant in her. And so just in case she does come out of the tube, he has some measure of control over her. So it's all going to come down, like I said. There's going to be a mushroom cloud that is in issue 4, not a literal, but a figurative mushroom cloud. And and Pluto's still going to have some tricks up his sleeve. I mean, all I'm going to say is there's a very strong chance, if you have ever seen those good 70s Spider-Man comics, when J. Jonah Jameson was always going after Spidey with a spider slayer, well, there may be something like that in the cards, and I'll just leave that right there. But it's got to have his face on it, just like J. Jonah Jameson. Every time he sent a spider slayer after Spidey, you know, it was not only attacking Spidey, but it had J. Jonah Jameson's face there with that snarl and that cigar, and he's yelling at Spider-Man, "You're a menace to the public. I'm going to take you out." And how he afforded these things on a newspaper editor's salary, I don't know. But, you know, it's comic books, so anything possible. But, you know, there's going to be some fun stuff like that. Oh, and of course there are going to be members or as we've seen in the past 2 issues, there were bodies that didn't wind up in mass graves, but were still of utility to Dr. Pluto more. So we may just see a flood of those in action as well. The Quanian zombies, as I've come to refer to them. So
I don't want to ruin too much here. So we're going to stop right there for 1 second. So I don't want to ruin too much. But
I'm just putting down the seeds. If you like The Walking Dead, you're going to love this.
Again, I want people to actually buy the book, and I want people to back it.
This is coming. This will be issue 4. Some of the stuff.
Obviously, I want people to be very excited. And one of the cool things about what's going on with this book right now is that your first campaign for issue 1 did very well, and then your second did well as well. I hate using like the same word twice without a comma there. But anyway, now this issue and this Kickstarter is doing better than I think both issues 1 and 2 did. And one of the things that, and I don't think I need to tell you guys this, but Kickstarter is tricky where sometimes a first issue does well, and naturally people lose interest between time. People are in different financial ranges. We're in a crazy financial time with everything that's going on, where some people have money, some people don't. And the fact that you're doing better than you've done on the first two, and you guys said that you have a bunch of new readers in there. What is that like? Because it's very weird. And I know both of you have been doing Kickstarters for a while. So I don't know if this is the norm or if this is not the norm at this point.
Well, like you said, the Kickstarter has a certain bit of unpredictability about it. And, you know, you look for consistency. The first thing I usually look at is backers. And like, you know, Mike has said, you know, we've managed to grab some new backers with this one. And obviously the more people we can get the book out to, I mean, that's the goal. I was just talking with someone the other day and saying that, you know, as much as, you know, I love drawing, Mike loves writing. The exciting part is to finally get the book in the hands of the people that have bought it, of the fans of the book. And I love hearing their reactions and knowing that it's going out there and that, you know, really kind of our heart and soul has been poured into these books. You know, I don't even know how many books I've worked on at this point. But every time I get a book that I've worked on in my hands, especially if it's something that I've done all the interiors with, or even I've written, it's like Christmas morning. You know, it's a really cool experience, and I hope that for everyone who picks up Scorpiana or anything from Outpost 426, that they experience that too. That they pick up something and know that it's a quality book. You know. And if you're looking for something that's sort of R-rated action, then Scorpion is your thing. If you're looking for something more traditional superhero, maybe Might's your thing. If you're into something sci-fi, then, you know, Into the Suck over here is your thing. And then, you know, we have other things, like Mike said, coming down the pike, so to speak. Mike's got Scarlett Steele. And I have Black Rabbit coming out. So lots of cool things that are heading our way. And, you know, hopefully, you know, backers for one book appreciate the effort and the quality. And, you know, they check out some of the other stuff that we have.
That's the kind of synchronicity that you want. And and also variety, because it's like you point out, you know, between space opera and the superheroes, and within the superheroes, you've got something more adult-oriented. I believe Black Rabbit is intended to be also in the adult-oriented sort of space. And Might is, of course, more, I guess you'd say PG-13. It's still, you know, it's a sexy, you know, but it doesn't push the edges, kind of like the others.
Yeah.
And, and you know, we've also talked about a couple of our other space-oriented properties that we've kicked around forever, and they're looking more appealing now, and they're also doing well on Kickstarter. So, you know, that's the wonderful thing about the Kickstarter community at this point, I've got to say, is that there is such a variety. There is such a desire to have, you know, a lot of different kinds of comic books, and that's a void that creators, not just me, CB, a whole bunch of people are happy to fill, and people are clearly eager for it. I mean, this project wouldn't be doing well if that weren't the case. And Brian Pulido wouldn't be about to, you know, basically buy another house somewhere with his Kickstarter if that weren't the case. And a lot of creators, like, you know, the big names basically, are going to crowdsourcing and crowdfunding because they aren't finding... You cannot work with the big publishers anymore, really, and produce edgy or interesting books like this because of varying, I guess you'll say, social factors. I'll just leave it right there. But this is the Wild West, and people obviously gravitate to it and they want it. So, you know, and not to mention, you know, CD and I have both worked for different kinds of publishers before, and you know, you can do work for hire, and you know, some people think that that's just awesome. Oh boy, I've been contracted to script something or withdraw something. But when it's your intellectual property and you've got complete control over it, whether it's, just by yourself or with a collaborator, that means you get to choose what happens to it next. I mean, when I worked at Malibu Graphics, which became Malibu Comics, this was in the early 90s, and I was scripted Galaxina, and I scripted another bad movie that was turned into a 3-issue miniseries. I got paid a flat fee for that, plus a tiny percentage of royalties, and it wasn't bad, but even adjusted, it doesn't even compare to the worst Kickstarter, the returns on the worst Kickstarter I've had to this point, and plus I didn't own the characters, and I didn't own the property itself. This is the complete opposite of that.
It's very important to own intellectual property. I own intellectual property, and I protect my intellectual property. And it's a very protective thing, and I'm very quick to issue a cease and desist. I haven't had to yet, but I got no problem issuing one of them out there. And I get very defensive when people take it, even if they legally can for news coverage or anything like that. I get very, very defensive very quickly. Whether I win or lose, it's very protective. And it's a very weird thing when you start owning intellectual property and how you react to it versus not owning intellectual property and, doing things. And I've edited people's podcasts before, and then I edit my own work. And there's a big difference between the two. And it's so weird. And unless you're there owning something, you don't understand it. And it's the weirdest thing to explain to somebody. And I have friends, and they don't understand how that works. And so it's a very weird circumstance on that front. And then also, with my intellectual property, I can do whatever I want with it. And I have complete control over it. And it's also very weird when you have complete control as well.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I mean, that's really, I think, the biggest appeal of it. I mean, I've been saying this about self-publishing, just like even prose works for the longest time. The major publishers serve as the gatekeepers, and this applies, equally to Marvel and DC and some of the other big publishers there. They determined who got to work in the business and who didn't. They determined how things got distributed, and they determined whose characters were going to see print. You didn't own them. I mean, unless you were just a huge name, unless you were some really driving force in the comic book world, you had no say. And the editor came in over top of whatever you might be doing, and they had a vision, and so that's really whose vision you were actualizing. Well, none of that applies to this space. In the same way that, love them or hate them, Amazon, with their ebooks, have enabled people to live very comfortably, and in some cases get kind of loaded, writing books to markets that are underserved, badly underserved, by the traditional publishing industry. And right now, the comic books are going the same way. There are markets and niches like the ones that we look to fill, because we also did not see products that were in these niches, that people want stories told, and they aren't there. So it's really just a win-win all around, and it's just too bad that this mechanism, of course, the internet has taken time to mature and develop, and Kickstarter's taken time to kind of prove itself, I guess, to people, because there are a lot of scammy people out there who will take advantage of Kickstarters. And we've seen projects, we've bought projects in a lot of cases where somebody either didn't follow through, or if they followed through, it was shoddy and crappy. And, the ones that just take the money and run, I just want to choke them. I really do. I just want to choke them, because they are the ones that make...
And it even goes further than that. And I'm sure, and I don't want to... I have friends, you have friends, but there's a whole thing where a bunch of people sometimes are also 6 months late on all of it. And I'm not even counting the COVID error, but it's happening COVID. And, they're still delivering the project, but they say, hey, I was originally supposed to get a book out to you in July, of 2020, and then you get it in January of 2021. And look, things happen, and the book isn't necessarily shoddy or crappy or anything like that, but it's also, that's a big issue right now on Kickstarter. And some of it can be controlled and some of it can't be. You know, I have a friend, Santine Phoenix, and her book, it's a D&D, Dungeons & Dragons book, and they funded a project before, and it took them a month to find a boat to get the product over.
Right.
So that's a bigger issue in of itself. Right. And that means that this project is going to be very similar. Just to get a big, you know, carton books over printed in China, you know, it's going to take them a while to figure out how to get a boat. And that's not their fault per se, but it definitely also tests the ability of Kickstarter to some degree because, well, you know, credibility is an issue now with that.
To me, the answer to most of that, though, is simply consistently communicating with your backers and letting them know. And like for me, like I experienced delays with Into the Suck. I experienced delays with Might, completely out of my control. The printer was backed up. They aren't getting the workers that they usually do. So they have so much more coming in. They've communicated with me, and as soon as I know, like, hey, something's going to be delayed, my backers know. And to me, the bottom line is, am I fulfilling my obligation? Because that's number one, you know, when it comes to Kickstarter, because I want people to come back. And, you know, if something goes wrong, I do my best that I possibly can to take care of that problem, you know, as quickly as possible. You know, and sometimes there's a little extra in it just because I want them to know that they're appreciated.
It's also the other thing, and this is where I think, you know, a lot of creators actually struggle, is that if you have a 3-month delay, chances are most people aren't going to be angry with you if you tell them what's going on.
Correct.
And you keep them informed. It's the Chris Voss, who is the lead FBI hostage negotiator. You know, he always called people when you're trying to negotiate a hostage situation, is that he says he just gives it to them straight up. You know, says, "Hi, how are you?" But there's no dilly-dallying, but because you're giving the news straight up, and then because that's what people want to know.
Right.
So whenever there's a Kickstarter and there's a delay, I just want to know, hey, what's going on?
Right.
You don't have to hold my hand every day, but if you give me an update every 2 weeks, I'm going to be less quick to jump and snap. And I think most people are as well. And then also, if you have the book done and it's already done digitally and you sent out a digital copy, immediately sending out a digital copy so that at least I feel like I'm getting something, you know, and that doesn't cost you any money if everybody's already getting a digital. What do I care that the digital copy didn't arrive when the physical copy and it arrived earlier? And so I just think a lot of creatives have to learn how to appease people in a lot of ways. So speaking of that, let's talk about rewards, because that's what really everybody wants to know about. And we're going to be sensitive here because I do not want to get taken off YouTube, taken out of my group here that we're streaming into, or, you know, onto my website. So there's a bunch of stuff, but the stuff that I want to start with is some old school stuff. And this is some of the available covers, I think, from the first round.
Correct.
And
that's
so
the main cover for issue 1, and it's a Keith Garvey variant that we had. And we had a lot of requests for offering up back issues, and a lot of that was due to, you know, new backers who are new to Scorpiana. So Mike and I, behind the scenes, you know, discussed how was the best way of getting books out to those that want to get caught up with the series, and so we offered these, and you know,
basically 3 from each, the first and the second issues, and they have been enormously popular. And
that boy right there.
I mean, I gotta say, you know, just the first issue, you know, Keith does amazing work to begin with, and he just I guess you'd say set the tone with the cover he came up with for the first issue there, and it actually carried forward into issue 3. You know, that's by far, as a matter of fact, if you check eBay, you still find people who are selling the, you know, the Garvey covers, and I've got to say that Corey's Showdown poster, or rather cover for issue 1, that was inspired because I could tell right away, or rather issue 2, I'm sorry. His Santa Muerte was awesome. I mean, don't get me wrong, that really kind of set the tone because, the Saint of Death, being behind Scorpiana, just give you an obvious indicator right away. She's out for blood. That was beautiful, beautiful work. And then for the second issue, the showdown cover, harken back to the James Bond movie For Your Eyes Only, where you've got the girl and you can see her from behind, and James Bond is facing her through the legs. It's just a terrific homage to one of the better Bond movies from the '80s, to say the least. And the one beside it, David Lima, that's kind of the homage to the Superman busting out of the chains that I think Kurt Swan drew. And he did a great couple of, both the regular and the topless versions on that one as well. So, the cover lineup for both issues, I think, has just been really good. We had some covers that we didn't offer up because we kind of wanted to keep condensed offering for the first 2 issues. But at some point, we're going to be setting up a web store for, basically, especially because we have a certain amount of backstock, to allow people to buy the ones by Steph Wilson and a number of other contributors who really gave us great covers as well. Yeah, we were very happy to be able to offer these. And like I said, we were surprised by the number of new backers who were new to Scorpion. So give them the option to buy the previous issues was we were going to do it. We just weren't sure how. There it is. Available through the campaign. Good to go.
And then obviously jumping into issue 3, there's a bunch of covers.
Yeah.
There's like 9 to 12 of them. And so we're going to go through them because it's amazing. So obviously, first and foremost, I love digital comics to read because you don't mess up your stuff, and also it's cheaper and it's easier sometimes, especially if you're international, to get a digital copy because shipping can be extremely expensive. I sell on eBay. I don't ship outside of the U.S. for that very reason, because shipping something to Australia, it can be $30 to $40. And I think I'm being very, very generous when I drop it that price.
Right.
It can be expensive. Shipping to Canada is like $21. And, I'm in Connecticut. I think Steve's in New York. So we're not that far from Canada. It's not like California, Canada.
Well, yeah, you could probably walk them across the border more cheaply.
Yeah.
I go 100%. Drive and deliver my book to Corey Hardyman if I wanted to ship him a comic cheaper than the amount of gas, which is crazy.
Yep.
And still get money to pick up a 6-pack on the way.
Of Canadian beer because it's stronger.
Just smuggle it right across the border, guys. Committing a felony and an international offense at best. So obviously, if you're in that circumstance and you do not want to drive over a border and pick yourself up a 6-pack from Canada, digital is the way to go. And so digital, which is great, is cheaper, and sometimes people are in a rough situation and it's cheaper and the cheapest way how to get and stay up to date with everybody. But let's say that you want the book and you want to go buy it. There's this cover right here. So obviously this is cover A. It's a cat fight. Obviously, this guy named CB Zane, I don't know if you heard of him, did it. I don't know who he is, guys. But obviously,
it's
let's talk about it, right?
To me, it's important. I don't know if Mike and I have ever really talked about it. We probably have, because we've talked about everything over the course of almost 20 years now.
Yeah.
To me, it's important that the main cover of any book is part of the story or is some element of the story and not just like a pinup. So, I mean, this is a variable. This is an element of the story, this cat fight. So it wasn't like I just decided, this will be cool. We'll have Scorpiana fight Shada. Instead, it's, it is a part of the book, and, I tried to have fun with it. And Sanju Naivagun, I hope I say his last name right, but Sanju is just a phenomenal colorist, and he did a beautiful job on this, especially with like the skin tones.
So he's really hitting his stride on that. Absolutely.
And then there's also this version of it.
Yep.
Which is the more risque version, if you will. And so obviously, whatever floats your boat for those who are interested, obviously, some people, like for me, for a few reasons, I buy and sell comics on eBay, and selling books and selling nude books on eBay is becoming tougher and tougher. Also, I like to actually share this stuff on social media, and it's a little hard to share this. No offense to anybody out there. I love nudity. I got no problem with it, but you really can't share this on social media. Right. But some people love that stuff, and they don't really care about sharing it on social media, and they just want to see, topless girls fighting because, I got no complaints.
None whatsoever.
And so I like the fact that you're hitting both, and then also I know with this cover, it's also available, I think, in a metal, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, and I have the metal here that I can share. This is
that looks even more glorious than I was picturing in my head. That I've got to say, I have not gotten a metal print before, and that
even like showing it here just isn't really doing it justice. The way the colors pop on it,
that is beautiful.
It's gorgeous. It really is.
I mean, foil covers look great, but that looks even better. And again, like you say, it doesn't even do justice digitally. I can't wait to look at one up close. It'll be awesome.
And then even going further into this, because obviously this is the Guardian.
Yeah. Keith is money. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, people love his stuff, and they also know that when you get Keith, chances are you just can't resist. You're going to pay him a little extra to make sure that her top is missing in a variation of the shot, and wouldn't you know it? There it is. And needless to say that I think this is our actually right now last time I checked, I'm pretty sure that's the top selling cover in the whole campaign.
Yep.
And he's great to work with too, because I worked out a possible pose with CD to suggest to him, and he took right to it. I mean, some artists, and I don't blame them. They really want the freedom to just make a cover, and they'll maybe give you a couple of roughs. But they kind of want more control over that. But he is just more than willing to work with you on what you want, and he delivers. When you finally get it, it's even better than you were expecting. So I got to say, I understand why. He's one of the hardest working men in show business, to say the very least. He
started late too. Started very late, which is crazy because I was his first interview, and I'm going to keep touting that out because that's my claim to fame right there. So I was there first before all of you, before everybody. I was there first.
You saw what was coming, the train that was coming down the tracks.
No, I just saw his pinups, and I was like, man, he's going to say no. And he said yes, and I was shocked. So there you go.
Right.
Complete luck. No skill, complete luck. I understand where I am in life, Yeah. So, but this is the other train that's coming down. Yep. Is this one. And Shikari is one of those artists that is coming down the tracks that people need to watch.
Yeah, and he is another guy who's great to work with, constantly working to please the person he's doing the cover for. In this one, he just absolutely slayed it. Everything, there's so much in this that I love, and this is also available as a metal too.
Yeah.
I gotta take this down, so now you can show it.
Yeah, there will be two more medals coming, but right now we got two.
And then does this also have a hollow foil as well?
It does, I believe, right?
Yeah. We have a foil edition of this one and a Scorpiona Red.
Yep.
And so that's out there. And then obviously this one's cool because this is one of those fun covers where it's not, I don't think it's technically a wraparound,
Right.
but you have the front, and then you have this sort of the same image just on the back of the cover. And I don't know what we call that, but it's almost double-sided, I guess, and you get two sort of things, but it's not a wraparound, traditionally at least.
Yeah,
Right.
and Ash is an Australian artist. I call him the Wonder from Down Under. And one of the things he does really well as an artist is he works well with negative space. And so I knew I wanted him to do that with this cover, work with the black and Scorpiana's outfit. And he was like, I got this. And he showed me his idea, and then he had her, putting a number 3 up behind her back because it's issue 3. And I was like, that is just so good. So I think this is a really cool cover. I like the fact that you have a front and back look at Scorpiana. She looks sexy. She looks strong. Everything that we want her to be.
And then obviously this cover too, because you've got cover 8.
Yeah.
Spokes is out there now too.
Yeah, Jeff has become one of the guys that we really like to work with because he's able to deliver on the sexy aspect of it, but he's also got it's still got a kind of, I don't want to say a throwback feel, but if you remember how covers looked in the 80s and the 90s, and by the guys like Byrne and Perez and people who really threw a lot of detail into them, he really fits that niche, and he has delivered. I mean, the cover he did for Might was fantastic. I'm sitting on a cover for Scarlett Steele from him that I adore. And, like I said, it's great to get him onto a campaign like this because he's just got such a, he's got the kind of comic book style, that realistic style that I will never lose my taste for. I don't think CD will ever lose his taste for because, these days it just seems like there's such a move toward, I don't know exactly what to call it. It's a kind of a combination. Sometimes they want manga style, sometimes they want just something completely non-traditional, and most of the time to my eyes it looks like ass. It just does not look good. I mean, honestly, some of the art, and I sampled some Spider-Gwen, and it was just like melting faces and stuff. It just looked awful. I don't know. I mean, if it sells, it sells. I can't complain about that. But the fact is, it looks awful. Jeff, on the other hand, does more like the art that we want to see, and that is, what he delivered. It's a beautiful cover.
And then we got this bad boy too, right here, and obviously that's, I guess, on a red hollow foil like RV. Got to throw it off there, but it's out there, so obviously it's very cool. This one.
And I'm gonna say that one thing that about this cover is that I got the idea to ask Keith to do this version from I guess they were doing an event with Wonder Woman Black and Gold, I guess it's called, and there were the one cover that stood out to me was there's this South African artist, Warren Low, I guess. He's a phenomenal artist, and I'm not surprised he works for the big two. But he did this cover, Wonder Woman Black and Gold, and it was her in black and white with the gold parts of her uniform and her glowing lasso color. And I said, that is so striking. Let me see what Keith can do with that. Because, you're going to have the reds and the blacks and, of course, her skin tone being black and white. And he kicked the 70-yard field goal with that. I mean, I'm not kidding you. He really did. It just came across, very strikingly. And it's going to look amazing in both the foil cover and for the metal print. I just have no doubt. It just looks terrific. Talk about the negative space. Ash did a fantastic job with that. This falls into that category where you do something kind of artistic with it, but it's still true to the project, and it winds up looking fantastic. I'm just really pleased. As a matter of fact, going forward, I'm going to be making excuses to do, have Keith or a similar artist do covers like this with, this kind of color emphasis, because it really pops. It really pops.
Yep.
And then obviously I forgot to put the Courtney Rose cover up, and so she has a cover too, and so obviously that cover is very cool, and it's gold.
Absolutely. I mean, I think CD was like, Goth Scorpiana, we can't not do this.
Yeah.
With Courtney. Yeah.
Courtney is sort of the queen of that goth look, and I know she's still recovering from having drawn all the roses in the background. She continues to tell me that, but she just captured that goth Scorpiana. It's still Scorpiana. It's still a goth element, and I went to Gat Melvin, who is a South African colorist. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I got this," and he did his thing. And I think just overall, it's just a visually beautiful piece when it was all said and done. As I could say about all of our covers, I think our cover lineup is on par with the best of them. I think
one of the reasons why we also have a higher average for backer on this campaign than the others is because people are getting multiple covers. They clearly like this cover lineup a lot. And we've had more buy-ins, I think, for packages of like the whole set, or like the week one covers and that sort of thing. And so that just tells me, we're really zeroing in on the artists that people like to see, and that's always a smart thing, not just strategically, but just artistically for the project.
So to even talk about that, because there's a lot of stuff. I know that somebody you work with, CV, it's Tom Hutchinson, and me and him spoke about this. And hate to break down the business side of things and enter controversial situations here, but one of the things is that it's great when people read your book, but also you need funding to get a book done. And it doesn't, at a certain point, if somebody says, "Hey, I just want to buy this because this cover art's amazing, I'm going to get you across the finish line," it's very tricky when you get that, because there is two sides to this. And obviously, I'm on the comic book investing side, so I understand that sometimes, you need to just get across the finish line. Yep. And if 70% of the population is reading your book and 30% is just a collector, at least 70% got it. And there's a whole business element to it. Right. And obviously that's sort of with the cons as well a little bit. And I think that's something that people don't understand. I was just in a Facebook group, and I was just advising somebody saying, "Hey, creative side is great, but remember this is also a business to it as well. And don't just leave the business side alone while you're creating your comic." And so what is that like? Because obviously having a bunch of covers and having multiple versions of these covers and having a metal and a hollow foil, that stuff, somebody might say, "Hey, I'm interested in the Garvey." They might read the regular edition of it, but then they're picking up a metal, and they might not be cracking open the metal so quickly. They might be sending that thing off to CGC very quickly.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to juggle when it comes to that side of it. Obviously, these
my expertise. My expertise, hands down. I'm the guy for this.
Yep. It's when you have multiple covers, that means your printing cost goes up. And then ultimately, the more books you ship, the higher that shipping cost is too. So, when you are choosing an artist, when you're choosing a cover, when you're choosing a cost for it, all of that factors in, along with time. I don't know if people realize how much time goes in behind the scenes. I mean, not just the writing, not just the art, but organizing, communicating, paying. And then, Scorpiana, we have a fulfillment service that we've been using for that, but I've done my own fulfillment, and that is far and away the most time-consuming part of all this. And just making sure that it works, that it's organized, and even though we use a fulfillment service for Scorpiana, Mike knows, like, just organizing the covers, the numbers, what goes where, which backer gets what.
Even going beyond that, which is logistics. Yep. I love operations and logistics. I love that area just in general. It fascinates me how things operate. And it's an amazing skill. There are people who have made billions of dollars and have become billionaires because of operations and logistics. There's a very famous company called the Learning Company. And Kevin O'Leary, that's how he made all of his money, basically because of operations and logistics, and he found somebody who was very good at that. But even going before that, obviously when you pick up and you have 7, 8 covers, obviously you're casting a much bigger net. And that's the other thing too that I think people need to understand is that it does require, obviously printing costs go up, but it's also the idea that I'm going to stop. For instance, and me and you were talking about this with Mike, where, I was at a real situation where I'm like, oh man, what cover am I going to get? And I've stopped and backed Kickstarters, not because I particularly like the story, but I like the cover art. And because if the person didn't have that cover, I wouldn't have backed their project. And so
that's for me, beyond Kickstarter, that's always been the draw for me, no pun intended, when collecting comics is if I like the artist. If John Byrne was working on a book back in the day, I bought it. George Perez, you knew you were getting quality work. There was just certain artists that you saw them, you knew their work was going to be great, you got it. And even now, like when I look, it kind of like you said, if I see a cover I like, because that's usually the first thing. I mean, obviously that grabs your attention. If I'm going through a Kickstarter and I see some nice art, I stop, I look. Then I want to see the interiors. Do the interiors match? Do they hold up? If they don't, then I kind of waver a bit.
So for me, where I'm at is that there's certain artists that I love. Sun Kumanaki, Keith Garvey. I'm a big John Royal fan in a lot of ways. And so all of a sudden what starts happening is that when I have extra money around, I look at a Keith Garvey and then boom, I go on Kickstarter. I'll look at the top 40 Kickstarters. If there's a Keith Garvey cover or a Sun Kumanaki cover or a John Royal cover, I'm now going to at least take a bigger look at your Kickstarter. Doesn't matter what your book is anymore because that's who I enjoy and I enjoy their art. Now, look, every once in a while I'll pass on a Keith Garvey cover or I'll pass on a Sun Kumanaki, but I would say 9 times out of 10, I'm back in that project. Not because I particularly care about the book, but congratulations, you got a customer now. I don't really care what your book is. For instance, now obviously sometimes I like the book and sometimes I actually know the book and I enjoy it. But if I know there's a particular artist doing something, then I'm most likely going to stick with that. And that's how you capture me. And it's very important. And
that's a way I think the market has changed a bit too, where people were buying it to read the stories and enjoy it. And you have a lot more collectors now of really the art. Like the cover is the art. It's the canvas. And they don't necessarily care about the story, which kind of hurts me a little bit because I know how much effort, is put into the story and making that great. And like I was going to get to before was the idea that anything that I put out with my name on it, and I'm sure Mike feels the same way, not only do I want the covers to be great, but I want the interiors to be just as good. And I take pride in that. And I think our books do absolutely offer that. So, yeah, I mean, that's another reason why you have all these variants on Kickstarter too, because like you said, like you mentioned John Royal. John Royal did a Mike cover for me last time. Really good guy to deal with. I had a blast, dealing with him. Keith obviously has done a lot of work for us. So, and we talked with Sun, right, Mike?
We did, and
it kind of fell through.
Those talks kind of faded out. We're going to have to get back and see if we can't get her services again because we would very much like to have a working on. I'd love to have us on Scarlett. I know CB would love to have us on either Mite or Black Rabbit, probably even better if possible. So,
it's also with covers on Kickstarter right now, what's going on also, and it's unfortunate, and it's a big concern for a lot of comic investors, is where everybody is now saying, okay, what's going to be the next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? And that's what's going on.
The case. I mean, seriously, ever since the black and white boom and then bust of the 90s, that of course looks like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles helped inspire. That's what there's always been this market, high and low going on with.
It's never been bigger. on a spec level, it's never been bigger, and that's what it is. It's a big, gigantic bubble waiting to be popped, and it'll reset itself. But there's a lot of speculation going on, and in the comic book investing side, we're all confused on Kickstarter, and there are serious debates because nobody knows where it's going, because legitimately this is like 2.5 years old, the Kickstarter side of this, and it's getting very interesting. Not to mention that also, it's kind of like a lot of people who are becoming big now and are going to be big in the next 3-4 years. A bunch of them started on Kickstarter, and well, their first cover is a Kickstarter book, and that's the other thing that's getting very interesting. Look at Ash Matty. It's a really good example. One of his first projects was a Jamie Tyndall print. Yeah. It's not something where it's like, if you back that, nobody knew who Ash Matty was legitimately a year ago. And now a bunch of people know who he is, and a bunch of people are paying attention. And that's the other thing that's also getting very interesting. And so that's why, I back Kickstarters, because I'm looking for the next superstar in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm selfish because I want them on my show.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I totally understand. Yeah. That's how we build the show.
And we want them as part of our stable, too.
Absolutely. Yeah. We want them in the Rolodex,
Yeah.
You remember those. We want to be able to say, hey, you go to this one.
It's also getting people before they become big so they come back to you. And it's starting to happen in a lot of sectors right now. There are certain wrestlers that in 3-4 months are not going to be accessible. And I'm fortunate enough that they were on my show. So it's very, very exciting when all that happens. And so obviously there's some other stuff too out there. Obviously you and Larry Higgins have something going on with Naomi. So that's kind of cool. And I can throw that up right there. And so
Larry's a really good guy.
Absolutely.
So, Larry's running his campaign for Niobe Origins #1, and he contacted Mike and I and said, hey, want to do a little cross promo? So, I threw this together based off of some of the art he sent me, and I like the fact that both of these characters, they're an homage. One is to a J. Scott Campbell, Mary Jane Watson cover, I think it was, and mine's the Milo Manara publicly scrutinized Spider-Woman cover that I did this for. So, but I thought it worked well together, and that's a trading card that you can get if you back both campaigns.
So that's out there, and then there's also just a bunch of stretch goals that have been unlocked at this point. A tarot card, a digital smartphone wallpaper, which I like, a cover fold thing, a postcard magnet, some more trading cards, a Shalda trading card, the poker chip, which you stole from Tom. We got to call a spade here. We're calling it down the middle. Obviously, apparently everybody knows cosplayer December Lace, who was a wrestler, which I didn't know she was a wrestler because apparently somebody I know. That's new to me. New to me.
December and I talk wrestling a lot. She's super cool. And she actually surprised us with that. She did that like completely on her own. And coming back to our discussion about Wendy before we got on the air, Wendy was the one that did sort of the special effects part of that photo. And she's like, hey, check this out. And I was like, oh my God, that is so cool. So Mike and I were like, we have to make this part of the campaign. And I'm so glad that's unlocked because I was excited for it.
Yes. Absolutely. And, we're not that far from, I think, the print, the Women of Outpost 426 print that you generated. Is that going to be 35?
No, that's, I think, 45. I think I put it at. So, we got a little bit, but there's some cool stuff coming up. Another trading card, another digital wallpaper that features the birth of the dragon. Let's put it that way. And
that's it.
And then the outpost. So we'll see. There's a little bit of time to go, and hopefully we can get there. Fingers crossed.
Yes.
And then there's just a bunch of other stuff that obviously you guys have made clear that's about to be unlocked, and obviously a bunch of stuff's going on.
There's still more to come. There's another cover that we'll be releasing soon. In fact, probably early next week by Gregorio Langarino. That's, for all the thick fans out there, really going to like that. It kind of has a grindhouse, feel to it. But it's a gorgeous cover that I think is our last brand new cover to release. But a couple other, metal prints to unveil, and So yeah, we're not done with the surprises, so to speak.
Right. You just basically try to turn it into kind of a theme park, as it were. You know, you really want to have a feeling like it's an active thing. You didn't just put everything out there the first week and set up your stretch goals and just watch it and see what happens. And we really want people to know that, you know, this is something you need to keep your eye on. You know, this is something that you need to come back and take a look at, read the updates, you see something cool. And so that's really what we're after with this. And, you know, it's really worked particularly well for this one. So, I mean, we're not including covers with like inset crystals like the Lady Death campaign is doing and stuff, but, you know, we do pretty well for ourselves. I really think so.
And then obviously, I want people to back this, and I want people to go check it out. So obviously, we're going to leave it right there with that. But I always have to ask this question now, because obviously things are crazy in the world right now, and I am curious how both of you view it. And you know, obviously, I think Steve Zane knows what I'm going to ask. But obviously, COVID is kicking up. It's a crazy world we live in. I don't think anybody knows what the hell's going on. And obviously, you're in New York, Steve Zane, and so you pretty much frequent, from my understanding, New York Comic-Con a lot. And so where do you think everything is going? Because it's getting crazy, and New York City is not being so friendly right now, I think it's safe to say. It's very draconian, I believe.
Yeah.
It's a good word to use, and I think it's not too controversial for me to say that.
You know what? I'm gonna say actually very little about it, because I'm not a big fan of getting into the politics of this whole thing.
Oh, not New York City, but just even.
Oh, right. To me, I just think live your life. I'm planning to do that.
Well, where do you think this entire con scene is going? Because for the rest of the year is the bigger question, because it's getting very, you know.
I was supposed to do a con in Michigan this weekend actually, and that was canceled. It was pushed off to June. I was supposed to do Baltimore the end of September, I think it is. And so far, that's good to go. I'm supposed to do C2E2 second week in December, and I already got notice about, you know, you have to have proof of vaccination. And so I don't know, like the whole climate, I think it's just going to be a variable.
Is it going to be something very much play by ear and see where it all goes? And
I don't see how it can be anything other than that. I don't think you can make a decision now based on whatever coming down the pike, the Delta variant now, the Omega variant down, the Quantium variant after that. Who knows? Who knows? So I throw my hands up. I wish for the best. If the con's there and I'm planning on going, I'm going to go. So yeah, that's all I can really say about it.
But I'll say that I don't have really any shows lined up. The closest one to me would be Dragon Con at the end of the month, and I really didn't line things up to try to go in as a guest or anything. So, but I noticed today that they are going to be requiring proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test within a certain amount of time. So that is the only way they're going to be able to open these things up. I think you're going to see the NFL and other sports leagues doing the exact same thing, and that's one of the only ways I think we're going to finally get stuff under control, is to put things to people where if you want to do social activities and do these things, you're going to have to make sure that you aren't either endangering yourself or endangering other people. And so the only other complication I can think of is that when we launched Scorpion 2 and we were trying to get it out, that was in like June or July of 20, I want to say. And it was right in the middle of COVID. So in a way, I'm kind of glad we did reasonably well as far as the sales were concerned, but it still was a bit down. And also it affected the logistics because, yeah, we used the printing company's fulfillment side. And there were people, I mean, several months on, and, you know, that this is where the responsiveness comes in, you know, who were like, you know, where are the books? And we were like, they were usually overseas. I mean, it wasn't always, but they were usually either in Canada or they were overseas. And I was in contact with the fulfillment company and trying to suss out things from their end. And everybody finally got their books, but I didn't want to leave them hanging. I didn't want to be, there's a certain big campaign, or not big campaign, but big property that runs campaigns right now that I believe the CB, you probably seen December talking about them on Facebook. And, you know, the guy behind the property, the artist, seems like a good guy. But the people running it for him, running the different properties, seem to be, let's just say, unconcerned with satisfaction. And so, one thing I think we've adapted to COVID enough that the logistics part of it is going to be a lot better figured out this time around. And, you know, cross fingers, knock on wood, you know, there won't be the delays because my gosh, there were delays in getting things shipped during that fall period, particularly. So that we seem to be adapting to it. We seem to be doing all right. So let's hope that you know, fingers crossed that we've got it figured out so we can do some conventions and we can do these Kickstarters and ship. Especially if we don't have books sitting in say China or someplace like that. We were a place that we use CB that's out of Florida. I want to say
it is.
Yeah. So, you know, I would rather, especially now, be working with a domestic printer, just, you know, for no other reason than it's going to be a lot easier for the domestic customers to get their stuff and get it in a timely fashion. So the only complication we might have is that the post office starting October 3rd is going to be tacking on postage to deal with holiday season. That might bite into our budget a little bit. But bottom line is that you know, still it's going to be domestic, and I believe we're going to be able to fulfill everybody's orders and get it out there and make them happy.
Yeah, so obviously that's kind of, I think, brings everything fully wrapped up nicely right there. And obviously, you know, I trust both of you are going to get people their books when they want them. And, you know, obviously you've been doing this forever, the both of you, and you have really good track records. So vote of confidence is in effect. But obviously, I do want to give both of you an opportunity to promote yourselves. Obviously, the Kickstarter, any projects that are coming up, where can people find you on social media? Because it is super important. You know, social media right now, more than ever, with everything being up in the air and having a digital footprint, it matters tremendously. So where can people find everything that's going on and what's next for Outpost 426? Still got it right this time, guys. Still got it right. We do 30 more interviews in the next 10 years. I mean, this joke's going to keep going.
Oh, Mike, you want to go first?
The main thing post Scorpiana is I need to get some things together so I can get Scarlett Steele out. But that's, like I say, that's probably, given the windows we're looking at, and you know, CB is going to be putting out something in a couple of months. So I'm going to try to, you know, do a certain amount of, you know, not just try to follow on the heels of that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So that'll probably be, I'm guessing, January, if I'm being realistic about it. And I don't know, we haven't really planned out our schedule into the next year, but I know that's what I've got coming up. And CB has something pretty exciting coming up, right? Because it's a character that originally was supposed to appear in night 2, as I recall. And you said, you know, this just needs to be its own thing, and I totally agree. So tell us about her.
Yeah. So coming up for me, next book that I'll be releasing is Black Rabbit, which will be my first venture into a truly like adult-oriented comic. And again, kind of like going back to what Mike was saying, I don't want it to just be, you know, all about like sex per se, but it's I want it to have a story. I want it to be, you know, it's going to be an erotic story, but I don't know. I guess you know, I want to keep it classy too, and it has some supernatural element to it too. So that'll be releasing. Right now, the plan is sometime in October, probably toward the end of October. Next year, for sure, Might 2 will be released, along with a trade paperback of Into the Suck, the first 6 issues, along with some extras that's thrown in there. Scorpiana 4 will be coming, you know, then, and I do have something I'm working on with Tom Hutchison. Very, very soon we'll be announcing this property that we are going to be doing for a completely separate company. Actually, it's not Big Dog and it's not Outpost. So that'll be, something that's happening soon too. So another, a busy end to 2021 and another busy 2022 going, forward. So yeah, keep, stay posted. Check out Outpost 426 on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook, CB Zane. You can also find me. I'm starting to dip my toes, if you will, into Instagram. Very, very little, but it's getting there. I'm finally coming into the 20th century.
Yeah.
I winked when I said that. So yeah, so that's it. And with that, Andrew, thanks for having us. I really appreciate it, man.
And I've been saying this, and I'm going to continue to say it, that you got to support indie. And what that means is you got to back Kickstarters that people are running. You have to then also share those Kickstarters outward. That means tweeting about it, Instagramming about it, Facebook, making TikTok videos about it, actually reviewing things. And it goes even beyond this. Even after you get your Kickstarter, do an unboxing video, post that out there, or write a review on it, or do a video review, because that stuff matters tremendously as well, because it lets people know what's going on, also lets people know, and even just sharing it around, Kickstarters. And I get it, money's tight, everybody's been there, everybody's in different financials, and so if you can't support a Kickstarter, economically, as I stated, even just sharing the link, into a Facebook group, or on your wall, or on, another group, or in, your page, or just tweeting about it, or making an Instagram reference to it, or a video reference to it, goes a huge way, because you never know who's watching. And it could very well be that the person you send to goes and buys all the covers, and that's what helps get a project funded or pushed over into a stretch goal, and it can make a huge difference.
Well stated. I agree with that completely.
And even going further, let's say you don't like Scorpiana, but you're into Might, or you're into another book by a comic writer, or by a studio, or by a company, picking up those other books also is very helpful, because while it doesn't directly fund that book that's on Kickstarter, it goes to support those artists so that they can continue to do it, where money sort of gets shifted around when you're buying, some of these books. And while it doesn't directly support that project, it indirectly does, and it goes a long way. So obviously not every book is for everybody, but most artists have something, and most writers have something for everybody, and picking up that stuff is extremely helpful. Or just better yet, you could just give them your entire charge card and they'll take what they need. So there you go. So, I'm not going to say no to it. I don't think they will either. So, we'll make it easy for you. So on that note, obviously I'm going to give the both of you the final word, or whoever wants to fight for it, or flip a coin, or duel. I don't know. So it's up to you guys.
Final word, I just say thank you very, very much for having us on the show. And, Scorpiana Kickstarter is rocking and rolling, and we invite you to check it out and take a ride, because it's at the peak of the roller coaster right now, and you're going to be going downhill at 200 miles an hour. You're going to love it. And I think that's really the main point I want to make here. CB?
Yeah, and I'll echo what Andrew's saying too. We rely very much on word of mouth, and whether that's done in social media or whatever, it is greatly appreciated. So if you like a book, if you like what you see, let people know. Support Andrew and his show here, because he's doing it for the right reasons, and again, that's another thing that's appreciated. And hopefully make yours Outpost 426 Studios. That'd be awesome.
Great. Solid.
And I don't think I could have said it any better myself, so that's a wrap.
All righty.
All right. Thank you so much for having us.